Hello, welcome back to my kitchen. Today we're doing an episode of Aaron's Baking Corner and we're making donuts. Granted, we're legit baking them because usually donuts, at least in my head, I think of frying, but I have donut pans and I was like, you know what? It's fall, let's have some apple cider donuts and have a good time. But I didn't feel like deep frying. So I have the donut pans, which is, it's plural. I have two different sets of them. I'm pretty sure I bought myself one of the pans and then my mom bought me the other as a gift, but it was like almost at the same time. So like she didn't know that I had already bought that because I was just trying to like fill out a King Arthur purchase to get free shipping. And I was like, well, everybody loves donuts, get donut pan. And so here I am with multiple of them, which works out for me today because the recipe makes a dozen and each of the pans is 6, so I can do it all in one. And apart from the specialty pan, I also got some new specialty flour. It's a Bob's Red Mill recipe, so I figured go all in and buy some Bob's Red Mill baking flour. And also I kind of figured, I'm like, baking flour is probably what I should buy versus the just like generic use flour that I have. And there is a difference. Like this doesn't have xanthan gum in it versus the King Arthur flour that I usually use has xanthan gum. So I don't know how that's gonna affect things, but I figured if I'm doing a Bob's Red Mill recipe, Bob's Red Mill flour should be the best bet. But I guess because I've already revealed, well, I guess just one of the ingredients, we should just run through the rest of them and then get into cooking. Apple cider, sugar, butter, an egg, flour, baking powder, nutmeg, cinnamon, and salt. The first step is to reduce the apple cider by a half. So we're starting out with 1.5 cups and we're gonna get it down to 3/4, and then we're gonna set that aside to let it cool. The next step is to cream together the sugar and the butter. And that should take about 3 to 4 minutes to get it to a like light creamy state. And the butter you need to make sure is at room temperature, which there's really no shortcuts. Like you can microwave a little bit to help it along, but you can't microwave to room temperature because it'll just start melting. So make sure that you kind of think ahead a little bit, and like an hour or so before, I mean, you just have to take butter out of the refrigerator and you should be good to go there. And then at the end, after it's been creamed together, you want to mix in an egg. Now in a separate bowl, you want to mix together the flour, the cinnamon, nutmeg, salt, and baking powder, and just make sure that's mixed up. Now we're gonna take that flour mix that we just made and we're going to alternate between adding that and the cooled apple cider that we reduced earlier to the creamed butter sugar mix. And I mean, all this is gonna be slowly incorporated together. And then at the end of that, you're gonna have donut dough. The next step is where some fun happens. We're going to pipe the dough into the pan because these are actually pan donuts. They're not going to be fried donuts. And I'm gonna use a Ziploc bag. So I'm gonna put all the dough into the Ziploc bag, cut off the corner, and then pipe it using that. But I'm also gonna do a bit of an experiment because this recipe calls for like spraying the pan. And I did buy some like vegetable spray, but I hardly ever buy it. Like, this is like my first time buying it in like 6 years. And I'm going to do an experiment where I'm going to do half with butter, the other half with spray, and we're going to see, does it make a difference? Because the butter side, I'm just going to use the wrapper from the butter that we have to use for this recipe, see if I can just use that to kind of grease the pan. And that saves you from buying something new, and also, you know, you get every last little ounce of that butter being used. So now that you have the dough in the pan, the next step is to bake that in the oven at 350 for 15 minutes until golden brown. Now that the donuts are baking, the next step is to kind of prep the topping for it. And so that's just melt some butter and then mix together cinnamon and sugar. Hello from the future. This is probably a little jarring, but I actually forgot to film me saying to put the cinnamon sugar onto the donut. I filmed everything else, and luckily I just started like editing right after filming it, so this is still the same night. But I have the wisdom of it being in hindsight now to tell you how to do it. However, the way that I do it in this step is not the way you should do it. Afterwards, when I was doing the rest of the donuts for the picture, I realized the better way, and I'm gonna give you 2 tips. The first tip, you do not need as much cinnamon sugar as they say in the recipe. You probably need about 1/3 of it. So do with that as you will. I'm gonna have to find some use for cinnamon sugar. The best way to do it is to be fair, I think the recipe actually says to do it this way, is just put the butter on top of the donut and then just dunk it in here, and then put the butter on the other side and then flip it and then dunk it in. So that's how you should do it. I'm about to show you the wrong way, but now you know the right way. The winning lottery numbers are 24, 48, 32, 42, and 18. All right, here we go. Not the prettiest that I would like. There's probably a better way to apply the cinnamon sugar to the top, but I don't know how to do that. But I will say, because this is the vegetable spray, and then this is just the butter, really no difference so far. Like, they didn't stick to the pan any differently. And like, it wasn't, I mean, I guess the vegetable spray was easier to apply because you just spray it. But so far, it seems like the butter is gonna be the winner just because it kind of is free, it's given. You get the butter wrapper with the butter, it seems like the way to go. I mean, I don't think the butter or the vegetable oil is gonna really play an effect here, but let's taste them and see. And this is definitely not an excuse for me just to eat 2 donuts. Definitely not. All right, the butter one. I mean, you cannot go wrong with apple, cinnamon, and sugar. Like, Before I get too far into things, we're gonna try the vegetable spray. Just to make sure there's no difference there, then we'll kind of go more into the overall flavor. I'd say there's no difference. I also realized, while taking a bite out of the second one, that the taste test is probably thrown off by the fact that we just covered them in butter to stick the cinnamon sugar on. So I'm actually eating 2 donuts pretty much for nothing. I mean, I'm not gonna regret it, but I don't think that the taste test really had much of a factor. I guess unless there was like an overpowering flavor from it, but I think vegetable oil is known for not having a flavor. So, moral of the story, don't buy spray-on stuff, just use the butter wrapper that it comes with. Now, the flavor of these things. Ooh, there is nothing better than cinnamon, sugar, and apples. It's such a good combination. Whoever thought of that, give them a gold star. So these donuts, I mean, it is one of those things which happened the first time that I made cake donuts, is because they're cake donuts. That's what these are. They're not kind of donuts themselves. They are just cake shaped as tiny little circles with a hole not in the center. So it's kind of like a different form of cupcake. The texture for these is definitely very kind of like soft and a good kind of mouthfeel to it. It's not dry, it's not grainy or anything like that like you can get from like an overbaked cake. These are very good. They taste very good, they feel very good. But it's not that like fried donut, like I don't know what I'm trying to describe, but I feel like people know what I'm saying. That fried donut kind of like weight that it has to it, whereas these are very light. And I could probably easily eat about 4 of these and be fine, whereas donuts, usually after one, I'm like, you feel that you shouldn't eat any more after one. You might continue to eat more. That's your own business. But these, after eating one, I suspect I'm gonna be like, I could do a few of these, because they're very small. Like, it's not a whole lot to them. It sounds like I'm saying a lot of negatives there. It's just mostly me being sad because I miss donuts. One of these days I'm gonna make actual proper donuts. But still, after all of that, you know what? We're changing the game. In my head I was thinking just donuts. We're just gonna do cake donuts. So like already that premise of they are cake, which in that case, these bad boys getting a 5 out of 5. I changed it up last minute. It was gonna be a 4.5, but because they're not trying to be like a fried donut, I'll give it to them. I'll give them that 5 out of 5 because they are delicious. And also pretty easy to make. If you have a donut pan, is pretty much the only bar to entry on this. Cakewalk, pun intended. And before I leave, one question, because in prep for this, I was, talking to, well, I was gonna say a few people. I think it was just one person. But I was talking about, I was like, because I had multiple flavors. I was like, should I do this donut or that donut? And we had the notice that I spelled donut with like doughnut, and they spell it like Dunkin' Donuts. So how do you spell it? Do you do donut, or do you like, it's like do nut? Because I'm curious, like, am I the only person who's thrown a GH into this thing, taking my time, doing some extra letters, or is that more common than I think? Because I feel like I see more people doing kind of like the Dunkin' Donuts style, just because I'm assuming Dunkin' Donuts has done their job well of marketing and got that into people's brain. But I'm curious. I'm just wondering how people spell that. And on that note, bye, Mom. Still not dead. See ya.